Okay. Everett, if you're ready to start, I'll go ahead and read the script, and it looks like we're recording.
Okay. Okay, good. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Sebastopol Planning Commission of April 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Okay, and this is an important notice regarding Planning Commission meetings. This meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with State of California executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Live stream and Zoom are being utilized in this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after the meeting. We will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Planning Commission members and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by using Zoom as noted on the city's website and on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak to the Planning Commission may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom. Live stream on the city's website is for viewing only. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way of providing public comment.
Okay, thank you for that. Could you do the roll call, please?
Sure. We'll start with you, Chair Fernandez.
Here.
Vice Chair Fritz.
Here.
Commissioner Kelly.
Here.
Commissioner Lindenbush.
Here.
Commissioner Ottinger.
Here.
And Commissioner Dauch is absent this evening.
Okay. And then we have one open space, just for the record.
Yes, and we are, the re-advertisement for that will be posted on Monday.
Okay, great. Okay, item number 3, approval of minutes for March 23rd, 2021. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes? Okay, well, good job. I guess not. Got them all.
I did notice it said at the top with the role, I think Vice Chair Dauch Fritz or something along those lines. So I think it's just Vice Chair Fritz absent.
Okay, and I will note that Commissioner Dauch did have a technical correction, but not substantive. So we'll make that correction as well.
Okay. And if that's the only change, ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion approved. We have second.
Second.
Second. Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes? If none, ask for a roll call for the minutes.
Sure. Commissioner Lindenbush.
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly.
Aye.
Commissioner Ottinger. Commissioner Ottinger.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fritz.
I'll abstain.
Abstain. And Chair Fernandez.
Yes, aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 3, comments from the public on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Again, items for not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a public comment, I'll give you 3 minutes to do so. And you can either virtually raise your hand or literally, and Carrie will spot you on that.
Okay, I do not see any, and we did not receive any via email for the commission.
Me.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
Darnell Witt, thank you. So we do have one commenter, Darnell Witt. Go ahead and unmute yourself. And can you see the timer?
Yes.
All right, go whenever you're ready.
I apologize that this is a bit of a question comment. I made a recent permit for tree removal on my property, and I was told by somebody that at these planning commission meetings are where such permits are discussed. So my comment / question is, my comment is I'm here, and my question is, are such things discussed in this forum or not? And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Okay, and I can address that once the comments from the public are completed. So,
Thank you.
and it doesn't look like we have any other.
No, I don't see any further
Okay.
comments.
I'll go ahead and close public comment. And Darnell, just for your information, those items do come up if they're on the agenda. We can't take any other items that are not on the agenda, but certainly that sounds like something that the planning department would go. Carrie, do you give them some direction on that?
Yeah, that's correct. And so there are two different types of tree permits. I can't address your application directly, but you can certainly contact me or the planner, Alan Montes, about your application specifically. But in the city of Sebastopol, tree permits are handled one of two ways. If it's a single family property, then it is reviewed by our city arborist and the decision is made at a staff level. That's appealable to our tree board, which is actually our design review / tree board that meets Wednesday afternoons. If it's a tree removal permit for a commercial property or multifamily residential, those are always heard by our DRB / tree board. So I'm not sure which category you're in, but from that we can certainly follow up with you directly as well.
Thank you very much.
And so I'm saying that he's been in touch with Alan. So yes, Alan can certainly let you know the process for that.
Great. Moving on to item number 5, statements of conflict of interest. If anyone, commissioners have any, yes, go ahead, Luke.
Out of an abundance of adherence to the Brown Act, I'll be recusing myself on item 6 as EAH Housing is one of the founding members of my employer, Generation Housing.
6A, okay. Okay. And anyone else? It's just going to be informational though, right? Carrie?
Yes, this will be an information report. So since there's no decision or direction being made, I don't think there's a conflict likely to come up. Luke, if you'd like to stay and participate, that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. I don't see one either.
Yeah,
so.
there's no need to recuse. It's informational, but thank you for your statement.
Okay, in that case, I'll be happy to stay. Thank you.
Okay, move on to item number 6A, EAH presentation. So this is presentation from nonprofit for affordable housing developer in Marin County that I'll let Carrie talk a little bit more about it, and then they can introduce themselves. First of all, appreciate both you being here for this presentation and giving us an opportunity to hear some unique alternate ways of thinking for affordable housing. We have some of these informational meetings are set for the next 4 or next 3 commission meetings, and hopefully that to help us to think about different ways that we can do that. And we appreciate you being here for that. And Carrie, if you want to add anything to that.
Thank you, Chair Fernandez. That was a great introduction. We have two, I believe at least 2 members, Marianne Lim from EHS and Scott Johnson, the Director of Business Development, here to present tonight. And I think I will let them step right in. And thank you very much. And if you have any other members of your team that are here this evening, it'd be if you can introduce them as well.
It's just the 2 of us.
Great.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fernandez and members of the commission. My name is Scott Johnson, Director of Business Development. Just technically inept person here. So would I be, to present, to share the presentation, I'm sharing screen? Is that what I'm doing?
That's correct. And if you don't already have permission, we can make you a co-host. Sam, if you can do that.
I think they said they were going to make us co-hosts.
Yeah. So all you need to do is click the green share screen at the bottom of your Zoom window, and it will give you whatever open windows you have to choose, and you can just select the one that has the presentation on it.
Okay, thank you. The message coming back is host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, and Sam, I am going to look to you to see if you can, since it's not showing up for me, if you can.
Yeah, try it now.
Okay.
There we go. Nice.
Great. I was going to say, otherwise, I do have it as a backup for that very reason.
We'll try it. Let me get into full screen mode. Okay. Well, yes, thank you. Again, my name is Scott Johnson, EAH's Director of Business Development and a 30-year resident of Sebastopol, during which time I've engaged in the development of a fair number of affordable housing initiatives and communities throughout Sonoma County, including a few right here in Sebastopol. Sharing the presentation with me today is Mary Ann Lim, EAH's Director of Portfolio and Portfolio Finance and Policy. And Mary Ann also has deep roots in Sonoma County through her prior leadership role within Burbank Housing. Our presentation will provide a brief overview of EAH and the what, why, where, and how of our work. And then Mary Ann and I welcome the Q&A and the dialogue that will follow. So 53 years ago, communities were mobilizing across the country to demand fair housing, social justice, economic equality, and EAH's origins in Marin County grow out of that activism. Fast forward 53 years and, gosh darn it, the struggle to create fair and equitable communities which are inclusive to all, regardless of race or economic status. That struggle continues, and that's where we EAH place our work. And to push that effort forward in California, throughout the country, within the affordable housing space, public-private partnership is the foundational core for originating, developing, and managing permanently affordable housing. Let me repeat that. Public-private partnership is the foundational core. From our very modest origins in Marin County, some 50 years back, we've grown a wee bit and now have significant capacity and depth that we share with a wide number of community partners across our two-state region, all of California and the islands of Hawaii. I'll share that throughout the North Bay, within Marin, Sonoma, and Napa counties, EAH has developed and manages 40 rental properties, totaling approximately 2,100 deed-restricted homes. And in Sonoma County itself, we own and manage 3 communities, Kings Valley Senior Apartments in Cloverdale, Riverfield Family Homes in Healdsburg, and Sonoma Creekside Family Apartments in Santa Rosa. We advance our work through 3 fully integrated divisions. On the real estate development side, EAH is known for finding creative solutions to complex challenges. Our property and asset management oversight is phenomenal, in large part due to EAH's strong support for its on-site property staff, property management staff, and the residents that they serve. And service is at the core of our mission, where we collaborate with our community partners through our Stay Well program, which is designed to help residents attain and maintain stable housing and to live independently. Now I'll turn it over to Mary Ann, who will present a few slides that follow.
So the households we usually serve fall within the extremely low income, very low income, and low income ranges, which is from 0 to 80% of the area median income. So, levels of affordability and how much a household pays in rent varies depending on the targeted population and funding sources. Some affordable housing mechanisms you might be familiar with is, public housing, where a household could earn up to 80% of the area median income, and they pay 30% of their income towards rent. And the remainder of the rent is subsidized by HUD. In Section 8 housing, a tenant may have a voucher from a housing authority to obtain housing on the open market. And they also only pay 30% of their income towards rent, but utilization of vouchers in high rent areas is a challenge, such as in Sonoma County. And they're hard to obtain, hard to get the vouchers. Low-income housing, tax credit housing, the property is financed using tax credit, using a tax credit allocation from the state, which allows private investors to put equity into a project in exchange for tax write-offs for losses and depreciation. And there, the tenant pays rent at the level of affordability of their unit. So it's not completely tied to their income. They have to income qualify, but they're paying the rent based on the affordability of the unit. And then there's also permanent supportive housing, which is housing for special needs and homeless or people at risk of homelessness. And usually those renters are extremely low income or have no income and may come with rental subsidies through other programs. So this slide shows, in Sonoma County, this is the multi-family housing program income limits for the state. And in Sonoma County, a person at 50% AMI, a 4-person household would have annual income of about $57,000. Go ahead to the next slide, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
This slide shows restricted rent levels can differ depending on the funding source used to finance the affordable housing. So at the top here, you can see that the HUD 2021 fair market rents, they estimate a 2-bedroom on the fair market is about $19.96 a month. But the state multifamily housing program, which is used to fund a lot of California new developments these days, in Sonoma County, you could see a 2-bedroom for a 50% AMI family is set restricted at $1,278. That's a $718 reduction from HUD's FMRs or difference. Based on these rent tiers, 20% up to 60% AMI, EAH rental units that we are producing average between 40 to 50% AMI. So you can see in those two bands, the rent levels that, area median income, I'm sorry. So 100% AMI. Scott, can you go back to the previous slide just for a second?
Yep.
So you could see here at 100% AMI, that's what the average household income would be. And at 50% for a family of 4, it's $56,800. So you could get an idea of what somebody living in our housing would possibly make. Okay, Scott, go ahead and go forward. And you go forward one more.
Mm-hmm.
So this is from an Affordable Housing Needs Report on Sonoma County that California Housing Partnership put together. And using 2018 to 2019 data, they estimated that there are almost 17,000 low-income renter households in Sonoma County that don't have access to an affordable home. And 77% of extremely low-income households are paying more than half of their income on housing costs. Renters in Sonoma County need to earn 2.3 times the city of Petaluma minimum wage of $15 an hour in order to afford the average monthly asking rent. And, of course, this was based on 2018-19 data. So I think rents have also gone up since then. Go ahead. So that translates to renters needing to make $34.31 an hour in order to afford the average 2-bedroom asking rent in Sonoma County. And you can see from this chart the types of jobs that make approximately $15 an hour wage. Like I said, that's the city of Petaluma's minimum wage. It's also very close to what a personal care aide might make, farm workers, janitors, cleaners, or retail persons. Even a construction labor with a higher wage of $24 an hour doesn't make enough to afford the average asking rent of a 2-bedroom. Go on. Scott, were you going to talk about this one, or?
No, if you can.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so funding for affordable housing is extremely competitive in California. And as many of you know, in 2012, we lost redevelopment housing or redevelopment financing, which brought a lot of local funding to affordable housing. And that has made it very difficult for Sonoma County to compete for state financing. In low-income housing tax credit structured financing, due to key rating and ranking criteria, they currently put an emphasis on local funding participation as one of the scoring criteria. And it's really made it hard for projects in Sonoma County to compete. Go on.
So thank you, Marianne. The financing stack puzzle, square peg in a round hole, sums it up perfectly. End of story. Let me just say that in my review of the financing stack puzzle, I'll be repeating and re-emphasizing some of the points that Marianne made. But first, to be clear, affordable housing has development costs that are equal to, sometimes greater than, market rate housing. We're typically on an even playing field with market rate housing when it comes to the cost of land, of professional consultants and their services, of municipal impact fees and permit fees, of insurance, construction materials, etc. Labor typically is costlier for affordable housing because we pay prevailing wages mandated by the state and the feds. In other words, a living wage, which is not typically a requirement of unrestricted market rate housing. So how the heck do we finance multi-million-dollar projects that cost the same, if not more than market rate to build? And how do we do so while providing restricted rents that only support a modest mortgage loan? The answer, it requires a financing stack combining multiple sources of equity and deferred payment debt, typically anywhere from 5 to a greater number of sources, different sources. And the essential ingredient to that financing stack, that stew that we have to pull together, is the investor equity that is generated through the sale of those low-income housing tax credits that Marianne was referring to. The tax credit program is the bedrock for most of the multifamily affordable housing developed and sustained across the country. And the basic project eligibility criteria for that program is that it must be non-transient rental housing. In other words, permanent affordable housing. Number 2, that future resident household incomes cannot be greater than the 80% of average median income for that locality that Marianne walked us through. And number 3, that project that a tax credit program finances has to be either a new construction or a substantial rehab project. But as Marianne aptly put it, in California especially, it is a highly competitive program, and a project has to meet very many prescribed thresholds to earn a tax credit award. Two of the various thresholds, which are absolutely essential, are: number one, a project needs to demonstrate that it has financial support from the local municipality where the project is located. In other words, municipal skin in the game. Number two, a project has to be quote unquote shovel ready. What does that mean? It means that all planning and environmental clearances must be fully in hand, and that all of the financing other than the tax credit equity must be fully committed. So when EAH steps into a potential public-private partnership opportunity, there are basically four key questions that we ask ourselves when evaluating that public-private partnership housing opportunity. First, does the public jurisdiction have housing resources available? This could take the form, obviously, of funding contribution towards that capital stack that we've just reviewed, but could also be an investment of city-owned land, the value of city-owned land invested into a project, or indirectly a waiver of municipal impact fees or permit costs. Sometimes, often, all of the above. Second, is there a predictable path to planning approval? In other words, does the zoning for the parcel support a residential multifamily development at the scope and the scale and the density necessary for a feasible, affordable project? Factor number three, has the municipality taken proactive steps to bake into its zoning code definitive means for streamlining, for fast tracking, for providing incentives to affordable housing? That is, does the code provide for multifamily housing as a by right allowable use, or does it require a costly and lengthy process that is subject to future discretionary action as a precondition to that multifamily use? 4, does the municipality have a record of supporting affordability and supporting integration into its community? And does it have that demonstrated political will to push back against no growth and no housing pressures? Let me now, what I'd like to do is to share very quickly share 2 profiles of a couple pipeline projects that we have underway, where we answered yes to each of those four questions that I just posed. The first is in Emeryville, where we are moving forward with a 68-unit project, which integrates seniors and transitional age youth into an intergenerational residential community. And it's being leveraged through a land donation from the city of Emeryville of a city-owned surface lot, along with an early front-end commitment of municipal housing funds towards the project, and a willingness to streamline municipal approvals through non-discretionary by right action. Very important, great development. The second case study here, real quickly, is in the city of Sacramento, where to originate this opportunity, it required a many $million-dollar raw land purchase, but we took that land purchase risk in part due to the city's very forward-looking zoning ordinance, which allows for ministerial staff level by right planning approval. In this case, we obtained planning and environmental approvals within 4 months of planning application. Within 4 months of planning application, planning approvals, CEQA certification for a 5-story mixed-use affordable housing project containing 140 deed-restricted apartments. In parallel to that planning approval, in 4 months, we obtained a critically important commitment of local housing funds that has allowed us to begin building the necessary financing stack that we previously reviewed. So Last slide. Wanted to close with this slide and a depiction of the 4 deed-restricted rental communities currently existing in the city of Sebastopol, each, generally around the perimeter of town and outside of the town core. The last of which, Petaluma Avenue Homes, was completed 12 years ago in 2009. Let me repeat, the last multifamily deed-restricted project completed in Sebastopol 12 years ago, 2009. Our challenge to you is that you take another fresh look at the housing resources that the city controls, which very frankly are not on the cash resources front, but which instead are very much on the land asset front. And specifically, I'm referring to the various surface parking lots within the town core that the city owns. And I'm suggesting that you consider re-looking at a reprogramming and looking at taking advantage of those land assets to leverage new production of affordable housing within your and within my town. And at that is the end of our formal presentation, and Marianne and I look very much forward to dialoguing with you and the public, if that's appropriate.
Great. Thank you, Scott and Marianne. At this point, before we do go into public comment and ask any commissioners that may have some questions to start with. And so there's only 5 of us. You can go ahead and speak up if you have a question.
So I have some questions. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more, just to explain the kind of tax credit competitiveness and how you sort of alluded a little bit to the, needing kind of points, but I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that and how you really need like maximum points and the importance of the local buy-in, how critical that is to the tax credit process and then getting those awards, since they are so competitive.
Marianne, you want to take that one on, or you want me to jump in?
Sure. I think, there's 9% and 4% tax credits, and 4% tax credits use tax exempt bonds. And in California, for the past 20 years, we've always had more volume bond cap than needs. This last year, it went competitive and it was oversubscribed, I think 3-to-1. So, we're all scrambling to try to figure out how to get our projects financed. And one of the criteria, they're really looking for new production of housing, not just re-syndication or rehab of existing housing, though that is important because you don't want your existing affordable housing stock to go down from not being recapitalized. So they're looking for new production, but they're also looking at how much the local entity is putting in. So that would be the city, town, or county, as compared to other state dollars. They want to make sure that the locality is putting in their fair share. And then they're also looking at cost efficiency. How much tax credits are you asking for compared to the overall total development cost? And if there's more local money put into it, then it makes your score better because, less of the total development cost is coming from credits or bonds. And, there's a wide variety of things that we have to do. We have to be energy efficient. We have to exceed Title 24. We have to provide services. So it is expensive, but the tax credit project is affordable for 55 years. And so, you want to make sure that you're building a quality project.
And if that, yes, everything Marianne said, plus, you know, one of the key thresholds, Commissioner Fritz, is within the tax credit program is, you know, locational efficiency. And there's strict criteria by which the state evaluates the locational efficiency of a project that they invest in. And so what we're talking about are projects that they invest in need to be in walking distance to designated amenities, schools, senior centers, transit, grocery, you know, food sources, you know, libraries, etc.
Parks, pharmacies, yeah.
Parks, pharmacies, medical centers. So you have to, you know, projects need to be in the city of Sebastopol. If the city is really interested in moving forward with an affordable, permanently affordable multifamily development that is modeled on a tax credit basis, the downtown core is where it's at, man. So there you have it. But Marianne's point about local leverage is very key.
Thanks. I also wanted to hear you maybe talk a little bit more about the importance of the, because you mentioned, you know, the importance of having all the entitlements and everything in hand and being able to show, you know, basically permit ready kind of projects, and how, you know, you mentioned that Sacramento project where you got your entitlements and your, you know, environmental documents, everything certified in 4 months, which is 4 months. Miraculous. Yeah. You know, and can you just talk about, you know, when it takes 4 years instead of 4 months to get a project, you know, through that process, what does that mean in terms of the project cost and financing? Oh my God, it means everything. I mean, first of all, there's the assurance, right, that there's a predictable process, right, in place that one can follow, that is based on objective standard, right? But nonetheless, it's prescribed within the zoning code that if you meet this criteria, we have determined as a municipality that this is a public policy priority of ours to support affordable housing. And therefore, we will, on a staff level basis, ministerial basis, we will fast track and streamline your proposal through the approval process and through the CEQA process. You know, we're going to work with you to obtain, you know, CEQA exemption if you're eligible for that CEQA exemption. So there's a firm commitment that isn't just verbal. We hear a lot about, you know, verbal support for affordable housing, but this is operational, actionable, right? Municipal, actionable guidelines, ordinances, policy that the city of Sacramento has very clearly made that commitment, and they're following up on it in a real way. For us as community builders and affordable housing developers and managers, I mean, you know, shortening that shovel-ready timeframe on the land use approvals from, as you say, you know, sometimes 2, 3, 4 years of very expensive pre-development work, shortening that down in a predictable way to something like 4, 5, 6 months is huge. I mean, it's huge. So I'm being emphatic in my response to you, Mr. Commissioner Fritz, but it really is, it's huge.
And if your project isn't shovel ready, you can't compete for the tax credits.
Yeah.
You need maximum points in order to even get to the tiebreaker. I did a project when I was at Burbank in Napa, and I started working on it in March, and we had a tax credit application, a 9% tax credit application submitted by June, and we're lucky enough to get an allocation, but the only way that was possible was the city staff said that they felt that they had a mandate from the council that affordable housing was important. And, before, from March until June, I had to get entitlements. And in Napa, all of the departments, because they felt the project was important, all of the departments, housing, building, public works, fire, they all sat in a room with us and went over the drawings. We hatched out all the problems. One department said, this doesn't work for us. But if you did X, Y, Z, those, that might work. And then the other departments, rather than going back and forth over multiple months between the departments, they were all at the table providing solutions. And that's how we made it happen.
Likewise, Sacramento, same process.
Yeah. And I have to say that project, right after we got our allocation, the Tubbs fire happened. That was in 2017. And after the fire, I had a $2.5 million gap because the cost of construction increased. And, luckily, we were working closely with the city and county, and, they put a little bit more money in. We were able to get money from Tipping Point Foundation, as well as, a private donor, just because, affordable housing was so hard. But, if we had waited another year to try to get that gap financing, it would have cost more than $2.5 million, I believe. So.
Thanks.
Scott, there is a question about looking at modular. Do you want to talk about the projects that were, yeah.
Oh, look at that. Yes, modular. A lot of excitement around modular, a growing infrastructure base for the production and the supply chain of modular. New factories are opening up. And as I say, lots of excitement. The jury is still out.
And Steve, I think you pushed a button. I think you.
Sorry about that. I was on
Okay.
mute. Hey, look at that. I'm not sure where you saw my flapping lips and no audio, but what I was saying is that, yeah, lots of excitement around modular, new factories opening up, supply chain starting to, to produce that supply of modules. And up till this point in time, the real cost savings with modular housing have come in the reduction of time frame, right? Production to start of construction to completion. Sort of back of the envelope, it appears that if all things go as planned, right? If the sequencing plan goes as planned, that you can realistically shave 3 to 4 months off of the construction timeframe. So it gets potentially, if you're doing it right, units in the ground more speedily. So less time frame, paying not as much on construction interest costs, and we, for example, we are looking at it. And the case study in Emeryville, that single graphic of the 4-story structure in Emeryville is one that combines a mass timber on the ground floor, right? Beautiful mass timber, that would otherwise be a concrete, a base. And the residential above, the 4 stories of residential above, has been intentionally designed to be consistent with and compliant with modular factory built design standards. So we have the flexibility to go either with modular when we get to an actual construction close, to actually go with modular or conventional stick frame site built.
Some of the impediments, though, to modular is that most of the modular builders are out of state, and so when you have your boxes built, you have to pay for them up front, and then you're transporting them, say from Idaho or farther, and you own them from the moment they leave that factory. So you're taking the transportation risk. You're taking the risk that, it's not going to rain during transportation and that you have enough staging area to stack the boxes. It's not easy. We do currently have a local factory in Factory OS on Mare Island, but, that one factory is not big enough to handle the volume we need for California. So.
Our first factory built community is an ag worker, farm worker development in Greenfield that again has been designed to modular standard. We have construction bids that we've received from various factories, and I anticipate that we'll be seeing a crane up in the air and when that project moves into construction here shortly.
And I see the question about, the need for thousands of units in Sonoma County, because of the limited tax credit allocation. Sonoma is limited to, I think, only, they're in a region where they're getting, 17% of the state's allocation. And there would never be enough tax credits to reach 1,000 units, and you're competing with other counties. I think there's like 5 or 6 other counties in the north region that Sonoma County is in. So it's extremely competitive.
So Scott, you had mentioned that the last affordable housing, deed restricted affordable housing rental project in Sebastopol was built in 2009. Why is that?
Oh my goodness.
New development died.
Although
2012.
I know
Yeah.
development is one piece of it, but I think, that's certainly one piece of why Sebastopol doesn't have the resources. I guess maybe part of that, a second question or second part of that is, what kind of things have you seen other small jurisdictions like Sebastopol do to be able to, provide, their fair share, their contribution to, develop affordable housing?
Yeah, great question, Chairman Fritz. As a Sebastopol resident, I'm dying to just dive into that question. Why has my town not supported since 2009? And that's a long answer, I believe. Some of the things that other small towns throughout California have done or doing is, quite frankly, aligning their ordinances, their housing policy, their city council priority goals around housing, and then linking up regionally with, be it at the county level, be it at the regional level, ABAG level, but really taking proactive steps to help leverage, right, a welcoming of affordable housing developers like EEH and the rest of the broad network of community builders that we have in the Bay Area. There has to be a welcoming environment, number one. And again, I'm taking off my EAH hat. I'm putting on my Sebastopol resident hat now. You know, over the 30 years that I've lived in Sebastopol, again, I took part in one of the 4 multifamily developments when I was with Burbank Housing, as Marianne was as well, many years back. But, you know, Sebastopol, I must say, within the development community, Sebastopol has a particular reputation for not necessarily being all that welcoming to development. And so to go straight to an answer, Chairman Fritz, I think the historical precedent in Sebastopol is part of the contributing factor to no multifamily being developed in Sebastopol for the last 12 years. Many other, you know, there are other variables that come into play, but that certainly is one of them. Okay, I'll put my
and Scott and everyone, I will just, I do need to speak up. The city did buy Park Village Mobile Home Park. And
Yes.
has actually been putting significant resource in there. We are currently renovating what'll be two bedroom family units, which will be deed restricted, as well as adding 2 RV sites for formerly homeless folks who are living in their RVs. So, and we've actually been working with West County Community Services to transition as homeowners leave to make those units affordable. So I would count that, even though I would call it an innovative, and I've actually given a presentation for the American Planning Association on it. It's sort of an innovative approach. It's not a, cookie cutter multifamily rental development, but it is a piece to the puzzle. So if you can add that to your map, Scott.
Oh, yes, I will. Good call out. Yes, we definitely will. We didn't mean to negate that very important contribution that the city has brought forward.
Yeah, and I will say, when I say redevelopment died, I worked for the city of Oakland back when I was a grad student at Berkeley, and worked on redevelopment studies and in the housing and policy section there. And it was very different atmosphere in terms of what you could do locally, and as a local jurisdiction have control. It is extremely difficult for a town our size to develop affordable housing all on its own, other than these, in a small incremental way. We also have an inclusionary zoning requirement, which requires developers to build them on site. So rather than pay a big fee, which would give us more money in the bank, but it's never enough to build the actual units. To get the units on the ground is actually where the city has gone with our policy in that regard. So like the Barlow Crossing townhomes will have 2 moderate income units out of those 18 units, and so it provides for a mixed unit community. And that's a religion and a philosophy, is one piece of the puzzle, so to speak, that helps things along. But yeah, the Park Village is sort of more of an innovative way. We certainly wish we had more funding to be able to guide and have more control.
Yes. But again, the point that I was trying to make is that it doesn't always just necessarily require cash funding resource. And again, lots of municipalities are bringing land forward. So city publicly owned land forward. There's a lot of work that's being done, including by EAH, with communities of faith. So churches, synagogues, who, because of either declining membership or mission-driven desire to support a particular outcome. There's a lot of work within the faith community, and there's a particular parcel in the city of Sebastopol that is owned by a particular church that is a prime parcel that it would be lovely to see the city take and I'm sure the city already has and staff already has, but that's an example of my gosh, as a developer, that's a great opportunity site. As our city parking.
Scott, I suspect it's the same parcel I look at when I drive by.
I suspect so.
I think there's several faith parcels in Sebastopol that could fit the bill, personally. I don't think there's just one.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of the economies of scale for, like project sizes? Because I know that becomes an issue with developers of like, you have a lot that you can only get 15 units on. Why is that not attractive?
Right. Yeah, I'm happy to take that and Marianne jump on in, but sort of back of the envelope for EAH, a project typically will need to be in the range of 40 units. Our sweet spot in terms of yield, in terms of number of units, our sweet spot tends to be in the 80 to 120 unit range. That's the sweet spot from a financing standpoint, and being able to assemble that financing stack that we very quickly reviewed. That's kind of the sweet spot. But a lot of smaller projects certainly are possible, and that would be something that the city might be wanting to take a closer look at. 40 to 50. And that becomes a real economic driver, not just on the front end development side in terms of economies of scale, but perhaps even more importantly on the back end operational side. In terms of being able to carry the freight and cover the costs with those very restricted rents, right? A larger scale project is going to be able to cover operating costs much more efficiently than a smaller one. But 40 to 50 to 60 is certainly doable.
It's also harder to attract a tax credit investor on a small project. I mean, just think about a 10-unit project. How you're basically telling the investor that over the next 15 years, when you're in the compliance period and they're in the deal, that they won't have to put in any more money. But a 10-unit project, if some major building system goes bad, and you only are putting even $600 per unit a month away, a year away towards replacement reserves, you're never going to be able to replace a major boiler or replace the roof, or even painting. Now a complex could be $100,000 to $300,000 depending on the size of it. So that's why having more units makes it more feasible.
Chair, if there aren't any other questions from the commissioners, do you want to make sure
Paul,
you
did you have
open for
any
public
questions?
comment?
Any other commissioners? I do have a couple of questions that no one else does. Go ahead, Kathy. Yeah.
I was wondering if you'd looked at some of the properties in Sebastopol that are the space over shopping centers. Like there's a couple of, not very many in town, I would admit, but looking at rebuilding some of those facilities that are perhaps empty or underutilized and building over them. Is that just too complicated a relationship for your formula?
No, not complicated from a design programming standpoint. That definitely is we do that. It really comes down to financial capacity and the economics of the deal. What is the shopping center at the western edge of town? The Redwood Market?
That's what I was thinking of
Red,
in particular because of the
yes.
places.
Right, Redwood Market, there are some easement and long-term lease, issues, I think, that complicate that particular parcel and its feasibility. But no, the notion, and again, within EAH's pipeline, we're working on deals of this nature, taking on and adding value and redesigning, reprogramming, what in effect are surface parking lots. I mean, that's what we're looking at with a building or two, right? Single story, strip mall-y type building, adding value to that underutilized real estate asset is definitely something that we look to do. In Sebastopol, that where there isn't a level of public funding available to support that work, it becomes a little bit more complicating. So.
Yeah, and Scott, on that, I do want to let the commission know, and also you guys and anyone else who's working on affordable housing, and that is, I sit on the Sonoma County Community Development Commission Cities and Towns Advisory Committee, and there is more and more funding coming to that group that the Board of Supervisors is awarding. It is, that is a JPA between the smaller towns, so not Petaluma and Santa Rosa. And there's been significant funding in recent years to allocate towards these types of projects. Specifically, there's community development block grant funding. There's some related to the disaster assistance, so it's it's based on a formula of from the Tubbs fire and whatnot, where countywide. It doesn't need to be in area, burn areas. It can be throughout the county.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are additional opportunities. Additionally, most of the CDBG funding that the cities used to spend on ADA improvements and things like that, we still do, but we can also look at other opportunities like Perk Village is actually, that's the last time we got an allocation from them. It was for those apartments renovations and those types of things. So there are definitely ways that the city can work with and look and support going after those larger fundings that aren't just the tax credit stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy, I wanted to jump in on that Redwood Marketplace question, because I actually was working with a developer who owns that property on kind of a housing idea, but unfortunately the former CVS space is a separate parcel. It's actually owned by CVS, and they are not really a willing seller. I mean, they're willing to sell for just an exorbitantly absurd amount of money, and it's unfortunately
they weren't interested in housing downtown either.
They weren't interested in housing downtown. They're not interested in selling that property. Really, it's better for them to keep it on their books as like a write-off, basically, and to sell it at a reasonable price for someone to do something with. So while the owner of the whole marketplace owns the parking lot in front of it, they don't own the CVS building itself, so they can't really, unfortunately, do anything with it.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I had another question about whether in any of your projects that you've worked on, you have restrictions for the number of vehicles that units can have as part of their rental. Because when a lot of people look at the numbers that you're talking about, 80 to what was that, 140, 50, they think of those cars multiplied by 2 and sometimes 3, because if you have a third bedroom, sometimes you have as many as 6 individuals living in those 3 bedrooms, and they have 6 cars. And that's one of the problems, that takes a lot more space for cars, that makes neighborhoods complain so much about larger developments. We also have, as you know, the bottleneck in town. So I was wondering whether, since not owning a car makes home ownership more affordable, or rent more affordable, because you have less automobile expenses, you still have transportation expenses. And we don't really have, we have a jitney that goes around town about every 45 minutes, and then we've got a few buses that go to other areas. But unless people are really working locally, it becomes a major problem. other than, Sacramento, Emeryville, these places have freeways and they're much more suburban and in their nature. It's very difficult because our downtown doesn't have that transportation resource. It doesn't have the volume of jobs for those numbers of people to effectively reduce our carbon footprint and have them live here. So it's really important that there's a nexus between, as we grow, the numbers of jobs we have and knowing how many of those people actually work in our town and working toward making those relationships more coordinated for the future and for the quality of people's lives. So I know that adds another level to your work, but it also helps our town accomplish more of what we want to accomplish going forward in the future, is to reduce that requirement that everyone has to drive to Santa Rosa or to some other area. And I think that's why those larger projects are harder to envision, all of those people having a large percentage of them going out of town versus a smaller development where you can control how many cars there are and whether people will be working in town because we have jobs for them at their income level. Do you ever work with that within your communities? Do you look at what jobs are available and what that income is to make sure there's a match there?
Absolutely, yes. In terms of the market assessment, the needs assessment, we definitely look at those metrics. A lot of the projects that we have moving forward are projects that are consistent with greenhouse gas reducing objectives that I know the city of Sebastopol has articulated and carries forward, but that are, there is one of the funding programs that comprises that financing stack as a potential funding source is the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities funding program, which is intended to reward residential developments that are within walking distance proximate to public transit facilities and which are building out at maximum densities, right? To bring residents into the town core of whatever city we're talking about, where services are available, where those who live there can walk, within, typically it's a half-mile radius is the radius that that the planners have drawn as the efficient proximity housing to transit. Those folks are walking to transit to hopefully get to jobs, to get to their medical services, or they're walking to their medical services. But in Sebastopol, traffic is an issue. Sebastopol, unfortunately, Sonoma County, West County, with its current transit services, is going to be difficult to get people out of their cars.
They don't run every 15 minutes, which is what you expect.
Right.
In the environment.
No, and that also makes it hard to compete for the tax credits.
Yep.
Yeah, it does. I can understand that because it's a problem if you move here and you have one car. You have to live within a mile of town and be willing to walk, which we did, by the way, but we realized there were no buses here when we moved.
Yeah.
Can I ask a little bit of a follow-up question to that? Does EAH, have you ever gone through the Green Trip certification process? Do you have any Green Trip certified projects? Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with that. I'm not sure we have a project that's actually formally gone through the Green Trip certification.
I know that they have, it's a program where you get certified, but to reduce your kind of parking counts, and they encourage things like transit passes for residents or car share programs for residents and things like that to try to get people to, reduce their car ownership. Right. Want to be an experience with that, those kinds of things.
Well, certainly we have experience with the end result of what you're describing. I don't think, however, we've gone through an actual certification with that particular Green Trip certifying program.
But we do have AHSC funded projects, and we've even gone so far as, buying an extra bus for the transit system in order to help qualify the project.
I mean, the development in Sacramento that we profiled very, very quickly is a kitty corner to a light rail station, and is a project that is located such that we will be leveraging ASIC dollars that will be invested on the transit side, will be invested into purchasing a new train car for that system, that rail system, and will be invested into mobility improvement, neighborhood mobility improvements, bike and ped mobility improvements in the Broadway neighborhood. So, real important. The linkage between transit and housing is key. And again, Sebastopol, there may be some creative things that Sebastopol can take a look at to help leverage that connectivity, that synchronicity in a more impactful way. I'd love to carry that conversation forward with the commission.
Well, and frankly, Scott, this is an issue for any rural town that doesn't have a major transit line on it.
Yeah.
This isn't specifically to Sebastopol.
Right.
I grew up in a town in the middle of Minnesota about the same size, and it had the same issue.
Yep.
Yep.
That's right.
Got a couple questions. So I had the same question regarding the parking and the traffic. Thank you for covering that. With respect to having a project being able to be streamlined, how does the design of the project kind of fit into that? And then a question to both Carrie and both of you as well is, where is Sebastopol? Like, what is our gap in order to do that? What do we need? Is it possible? I'm just curious as to, like, is there a sample that we can look at, or Carrie, maybe you're familiar with, what an example of that streamlined process would work from the standpoint.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I was going to actually ask you to, I know of a couple of processes. One is there are certainly new CEQA exemptions. I know Scott spoke about that a bit for infill projects. I'm the environmental coordinator for the city, and I can certainly look at those. I do feel the responsibility to look at, are there specific circumstances with a particular project site-wise where it would work or not work, but that's an option. And then I believe last year around this time you heard about SB 35, which is a streamlined process. The city does currently have an applicant who has submitted a notice of intent. I can't talk about that particular application to go through that process. And unfortunately, part of that is probably because the design of the project was problematic.
Okay. Yeah. Chairman Fernandez, I would say we do have some example, streamlining templates that we can provide. Sacramento is right at the top of my list, and we're happy to provide those. One of the tools that we see local jurisdictions adopting in a real proactive, intentional way, and I think Sebastopol has a downtown specific plan that's been adopted. Yes? Is there a specific plan adopted?
We do not. We have a PDA, a priority development area that covers downtown.
So from a streamlining standpoint, if a lot of municipalities are intentionally adopting, specific plans and certifying those specific plans through EIR findings, and the ability to piggyback off of that EIR is one of the tools that is both rewarded by the state in terms of the financing stack, and helps to condense, right, what might otherwise be a lengthy project-specific CEQA certification. If you can piggyback off of a specific plan that's been adopted, EIR certified, that's a real impactful, powerful planning tool.
And the designs of the projects, how are they determined as they go through design review, or is that something that's preset?
It's going to vary by jurisdiction. In Sacramento, that fairly largely scaled 140 unit mixed use project did not have to go through design review. That was 100% staff level approval. We met the affordability criteria. We met the number of units criteria, and it was all processed at staff level. No design review. Now that gets into, that comes with some complications and sensitivity, as we all know, in terms of public participation and engagement. And we're not suggesting that that necessarily be taken away and that the public be disempowered, but just from a housing production standpoint, streamlining policy is really impactful.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open up for public comments as they've been waiting patiently, and then we can bring it back and Commission has additional questions. And for the public, if the way this will work is you'll have 3 minutes. If you have questions, we can't engage in dialogue, but you can ask your question, make your comment. We'll write down the questions that you have, and then after the end of public comment, we'll do our best to answer those questions. So if you would like to have questions, go ahead and virtually or literally raise your hand, and Carrie will spot you and put you in.
Yeah, and I know Michael had a couple of questions earlier in the chat. That is, we did want to say that questions for the question and answer format, since this is a planning commission meeting. But so Michael, I don't know if you had any additional questions you wanted to ask. Okay, I guess not. He did have a couple of questions in that Marianne caught, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I would just like to say, the two big things that would really help California in affordable housing production would be an increase in our tax credit allocation from the federal government, as well as the reduction of this 50% test to 25% for tax exempt bond projects. Currently, in order to qualify as a tax exempt project, you have to use more than 50% of the financing has to come from the bonds. And a lot of times, the project can't permanently support that amount of financing. So, you take it out, use it during construction, and then, it gets paid down with soft loans or, a small mortgage. But if we didn't have to use that 51% or more, we would be able to do more tax exempt bond deals. And I can't remember what the number is, but it would be significant to allow projects to go through. So we're hoping that it will be incorporated in Biden's housing as infrastructure, the infrastructure bill that's going to be proposed.
Carrie, do you see any other individuals wanting to make public comment?
I do not see any additional public comment or questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. We'll go ahead and bring it back to Commission and just see if anybody has any additional comments or questions. Feel free to go ahead and speak up. Yes. We'll start with our planning director.
Thank you. I guess I could have probably asked the question in public.
Sure. Absolutely.
After all, I do live in Sebastopol. Do you have, I know you talked a lot about economies of scale, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts or recommendations for the smaller projects. And as both the planning director and a member of the public, it's nice to see that one of the things I love about the area, West County and Sebastopol, is there's all these tucked in little places, and it's not this big block of apartments. That's not, that's a little hard to reconcile with the character of town, but to have these little communities, and we have, like our last presentation was on co-housing and 2-acre woods and Sequoia Village and those types of things, which are bigger, but they're still sort of tucked away. And not to say that I'm trying to hide housing, but it's more that it's the character, that it's not, a huge scale. It's there's smaller communities. And so I'm curious if you have any advice for, especially since the funding that I mentioned earlier is more likely to happen for the smaller scale, 10-unit kind of projects.
If you could bundle several projects together, and if you wanted to use tax credits or other state financing, that would work. If they're within, I think it's 10 miles or within the same county, even tax, you could do tax credits. A lot of times, like when I was at Burbank, I did rehab of 2 communities that were across the street from each other, but one was only, 28 units. And there's no way I would have ever gotten an investor to take a 28 unit project. So I married it with a 90 unit one. They weren't in the same partnership, but we did them at the same time. So, the investor had some economies of scale that way.
And I know that Sebastopol actually, because of our population, we actually qualify for the rural set aside. Is that helpful or change any of those dynamics?
It does allow you to compete in a separate pool that, it's in some respects a little easier.
It used to be a lot easier, and it's become much more competitive now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But Marianne is right. It is a separate pool.
Do you ever do projects where you partner with a for-profit developer and have like a mixed income project kind of thing where you can leverage some of their funds for your project? Or
yes, absolutely. Yes, the answer is yes, we do. Typically, often that takes the form of EAH taking on the market rate master developers inclusionary housing obligation, and we partner with market rate developers in that regards. We have a large transit-oriented development at a Santa Clara County VTA, the transit agency in Santa Clara County, is making their surface parking lot available for a large-scale mixed use, mixed income development, where we're taking on as the inclusionary component of that master plan, developing a 90-unit, 4-story, 90-unit affordable housing component to that overall master plan. So yes, we do. That is one of the avenues that we seek out and welcome the opportunity to proceed on.
I have a comment or question when.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to remind us of our time, not time in this meeting, but that at the time frame of us building affordable housing. And if you'll recall, we did Hollyhock down on South Gravenstein, and that was in cooperation, Burbank, of course, and the USDA Rural Development. I don't know if those funds are still available, but I just wanted to remind us. And that was like in, I think it finally got finished 2013 or 14. So little by little. So it's not a question, just reminding us of our good work.
Here, here. Yes, Hollyhock is a great for sale home ownership, first time home buyer subdivision. EAH, we're not in that space. Our space is affordable rental. But yes, that subdivision, the funds of USDA, that was financed mostly through USDA what's called 502 home mortgage funds, in combination with the state HCD funds that used to be available that are no longer available. The state has made a real commitment to affordable rental. So it becomes more difficult for the affordable housing network to really finance home ownership for sale subdivisions like Burbank was moving forward in the past, that I used to do a lot of work with, actually.
That's too bad. I didn't realize that. So.
Yeah, it takes a lot of down payment assistance in order to get the home down to a level that's affordable for the home buyers.
But you're right, that's a great community. Yeah.
You have other comments or questions, Linda?
Oh, no, that was
Okay.
it.
All right. Is there anybody else? I think we're kind of.
I actually have one last question. Sure. So how does EAH work with, when you come to a community and there's going to be some resistance for whatever reason, there's always some kind of community resistance, it seems, where you do have to go through some kind of public hearing process. It's not a ministerial approval. Like, how does EAH kind of work with making sure that the community, does support a project and can rally behind, even if there are, there's always going to be the few naysayers, but how do you have some kind of proactive outreach mechanism that you guys work with to make sure the community buys into the project?
Yes. The answer is yes. We welcome community engagement. We welcome the input, the feedback provided through the public participation process that we launch and that we engage in. We seek that out. That's an important component of the community building work that we do. And we try to be respectful, responsive. We try to listen, take into account the concerns, the fears that are expressed. We will always try to, come forward with design or programmatic solutions that help to mitigate those concerns. And so, yes, we're very accustomed to engaging directly, even if it's even in those instances where we're not obligated to seek out and engage through a formal process. We will intentionally and voluntarily do that. So that's an important piece. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great question. It definitely needed to be asked. So yeah, that's great. Well, Scott, Marianne, really appreciate your time here. And Scott, I'm glad you're one of us, Sebastopolians. Hopefully we can help us out here. Try to be creative with some opportunities that we may come along. But I think it's just the start is just to identify maybe some areas and get us pointed in the right direction. And it's got to start somewhere. Thinking about it anyway, possibility. So I really appreciate your time, spending the time with us tonight.
Great.
Appreciate the interest in the invite. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
And just for informational purposes, our next meeting on April 27th, we will have Burbank Housing as a presenter, and that name came up a few times, and they will be talking about working with faith-based organizations. So timely for that. And then on May 11th, we have a Mid-Penn Housing. They were developed for the teacher housing project in San Francisco Sunset District. And then on May 25th, we'll have, I don't know if it's pronounced Eden Housing
Eden. Yeah.
Eden, an affordable housing developer and operator based in Hayward. They have partnered with cities throughout the Bay Area, including communities in Hillsburg, Petaluma, and Marin, to do presentations. So we just continue to try to think outside the box and hear what other people are doing, and hopefully make some things work. So thank you for that.
That's wonderful.
That's great. Those are all value add members of the Allied Affordable Housing Network.
Yeah,
That's
and
great.
I want to thank former Commissioner Kate Haug for setting all these up. So that's great. Okay, so we're going to move on to item number 7, which is their subcommittee updates. Thank you, Scott. Marianne,
Thank you.
I'm sure you got better things to do.
Good night.
Good night. We have any subcommittee updates? Go ahead, Commissioner Kath, go ahead.
Okay, Ives Park Subcommittee. I have a few things to report and some questions. First, Carrie was able to get the committee onto the Public Arts Committee meeting agenda on May 5th at 10:30, and I'll be presenting the mural concept for the Ives Pool fencing. Ricky Watts, a local muralist, will attend to answer questions, and at the last minute I will check conditions at Ives Park just to make sure that my documents that you've all seen are correct and accurate and up to date, and then get them to Carrie in time for the May 5th. If anyone wants to attend that, that's interesting.
Is it a proposal of a certain type of artwork, or is it just the concept of doing something?
I'm mostly just presenting the idea of the spaces where murals would be good, and I would leave that up to them. I feel like I will want to make some personal commentary on the fact that parks can be restful, and on the other hand, they can also be exciting, but it's important to try to find some sort of balance there for Ives Park, which is kind of a, if you live in town and you're walking to town, it's really a little piece of nature, and there could be issues. They might not be interested in doing this at all, but I thought it was worthwhile to present the idea, because I think the right good mural could be good for some of the spaces there, not all of them, but I'll see what they on that.
I think it adds some great to it.
The second item is that I did speak with Jim Corbett since our last meeting, and he thinks that the staircase on the west side of the stage is okay, really, and the one on the east side that needs to be replaced, he would like to put in a ramp so that musicians and performers can roll their equipment right up onto the spot. He has since spoken with Dante and is going to produce some engineered drawings, and he says it won't happen right away because I don't think he's going to be able to do concerts this summer unless COVID really opens up and people really feel comfortable being in a crowd. I don't think that kind of a crowd can happen that soon, so we might not see this right away, but it's in the process. If people want to donate to the cause, you can go to peacetown.com and make an online donation to help with that. I don't think there will be a problem with that, and I asked him to let me know if there was a problem with funding for that. Thirdly, I was in the park recently. I noticed that the ball fields are there. You can see them because a lot of the signs have been taken down. So if you're coming in from High Street, you can look right through the third base field. And if you're coming from Willow Street or Jewel Avenue, you can see home plate. And the signs that are there right now are just mostly at center field, probably to create a good view for the pitcher and the batter to do their thing. I don't know how long that will last, but it was kind of nice to actually see into the park more than usual. So
but maybe good to take some photos while
I should, yes.
Yeah.
I will do that because I'll be taking photos for the mural. I thought I should just, to be thorough, to take a picture of the east wall where there is some planting in front, just so that they could see that wall, because that's another candidate, I suppose. Fourthly, I noticed that the damage to the women's bathroom had been repaired. There's new siding, so I'm assuming that they repaired the dry rot inside before they put the siding up. But there is other dry rot around the edges, but at least it doesn't look damaged. And I assume at some point they will paint that and put trims up. Fifthly, I'm working on the graffiti at the taqueria. That's near the High Street parking lot. The restaurant manager doesn't care if I paint, but he can't give me permission to paint it. The regional manager doesn't care if I do it, but he can't give me permission. And the general manager, to whom they've given my phone number, hasn't called me and contacted me. So if I feel like painting, I just might take care of that item. And sixth,
We'll raise bail for you in case that's an issue.
I know, I think I'll do it when it's really quiet, but Sunday morning, it was not really quiet because there's a Little League game going on and parking is everywhere. And there's people all over the place, including, I think, some people who are living in that parking lot, because I see the same vans there that could be livable. So I suspect people are living there, but I don't think they'll bother me.
And would the ordinance come into play, Carrie, regarding graffiti? Having a certain time to...
Yeah, so I don't think we have an ordinance. We usually put conditions of approval.
Okay.
The only place it's in our ordinance is related to telecom facilities at this point.
Yeah, I said I'm not going to cause any problems for you here.
Yeah.
I just either want permission or I want to do it, and they don't care, but I don't really have permission. But
well, if you need help, I'll be your partner in crime, so to speak.
Yeah, I've got some good high volume primer, so it's white, not cream, but it's better than what's there. And fourthly, my question for Carrie, I know we've been talking about a hydrology report for the creek in the park, and I was wondering, I'm just still confused on where that is. Is it out to bid? Is it out to be? Are we ready to fund it? Or
so we're looking for consultants for 2 studies for Ives Park. For the creek naturalization, one is hydrology, and that all actually needs to be done in tandem, or it will be most useful to us if it's done in tandem with what the creek channel design will look like.
And the design, okay.
Yeah.
And so you're looking.
And we're looking for consultants. I've talked to GHD is providing engineering services along with Joe Gaffney, our city engineer. Both of those are consultants, but they're sort of the city's engineering department at this time. And so I've asked GHD to help facilitate that, not do the study necessary, but help us get that going, since that would normally be something I'd work with Henry, the retired engineering manager, on.
Okay, yeah, that'd be really nice to see something moving on that.
Yeah. And Kathy, once you're done, I do have a couple of other Ives Park updates to share.
Thank you. I'm done.
Oh, I didn't realize you were, okay. Just in terms of Ives Park, the sculpture garden, the agreement with the county to use part of the Veterans Building land, the area between that parking lot and the pathway where the sculpture garden is owned by both, the property line is in the middle of that. That's been fully executed, so we're able to move forward with that, and the Public Art Committee folks will be marking out the locations for those and later this month, and then Public Works is scheduled to do the construction of those concrete pads for the sculpture towards the end of this month or early May. And then the May meeting of the Public Art Committee, they'll be finalizing the dates for the artist call and put that out shortly thereafter. They want the pads to be there so the artists can understand the different sites that'll be available.
Yeah, and then just kind of update ourselves. Can't get really too much detail because it's kind of up in the air. But Kathy, I don't know if you mind if I mentioned our meeting that we had.
Go ahead.
We had a meeting with a very well-respected individual that's worked on daylighting creeks to different cities and so forth, and we will going to have her do a presentation to the Planning Commission sometime in the future. But in the meantime, she's kind of gathering information. She's not only has ideas on or experience in how to do it, she's got direct connections to funding mechanisms as well. So it's not just a dream pie in the sky. It could something that could realistically help and move us forward. So as we have more information on that, we can bring that forward. And that meeting was facilitated by Lynn Dietler. Give him credit for that. But it kind of started that process, and she lives in Sebastopol. So she's very interested in helping us out and working with us. So looking forward to bringing you more information on that.
And I'll just add to that point.
Yeah.
I know when you weren't with us ever, but Carrie, you were, when Kate and I were with you and Dante, and we were in the park, and I was looking at my idea of moving the children's playground fence back a little bit. And he said, oh, I was going to put a tree and a picnic bench in there. And I go, yeah, that would be nice. That's okay. But second, thinking about that again, I kept thinking that if we were going to be working on the creek, that area is so pinched and so tight. If the fence could be moved back even 5-10 feet, there might still be room for a small table and a tree. But also it'd be great if the asphalt could be moved over too, and the roadway where the utility vehicles need to enter into the park could use some of the handicap parking area where nobody parks and nobody is constantly getting in and out of their cars. So the occasional vehicle going into the park across that area. I mean, it doesn't mean changing the engineering for the asphalt, but in the long run, that would add so much more space for whatever work will be done in that area in the future. It was just, I just have to say it again one more time, and I won't say it anymore, but it's unfortunate that we can't do that right now while we're working on these things to just make the creek have more space. Just keep it in mind if you have any power or desire to act on something like that.
Thanks, Kathy. I will take another look at that. I know that the parking is that all of that asphalt up to there is part of the art center's lot, technically. So that's sort of a little bit of a complexity, but at the same time, they were easy to work with for the agreement for the sculpture park.
And I would assume that those accessible parking spaces are probably for the park. They're far away from the building. I'm sure the building they have accessible parking, I think, on the south side of the building.
That's correct. The city has another different agreement with the county to be able to have those parking spaces there.
Yeah.
Any other subcommittee reports, questions? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So the Climate Action Committee met 2 weeks ago. Working groups are underway, and last time we discussed a revision to the Climate Action Plan. Another meeting coming up tomorrow will address a number of topics, including looking at banning of gas stations and reviewing an all-electric reach code for the city. So more information on those meetings as they transpire. But again, just chugging along, and the work is accelerating as everybody's in their working groups now.
Great. Thank you for that.
And
okay.
This is not actually this is not a subcommittee report. So
sorry, go ahead.
I just had to throw out there. I think everyone was copied on this. There was a webinar last week that I think Mary sent to everyone about a housing action coalition or something, put it together. And I did watch that, and it was very interesting. I just, apropos of the talk we just had, there was a former city council member in Sacramento that talked a lot about the things that Sacramento had done to make building housing easier. And I just encourage, I can forward the recording of the webinar if anyone's interested. I'm able to send it to Carrie and she can send it out to everybody, and if people want to watch it. It was kind of interesting. I enjoyed participating.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Great, and I do have one update for the Climate Action Committee as well. I believe one of the things they asked for was to reopen the vacant positions. There are a couple of vacant positions, and Luke, I know I just finished the staff report for this, or Alan did, and I finished reviewing it. I believe one is environmental justice. Do you recall what the other position is for, Luke?
My understanding is the one is the environmental justice and equity. There may be a second one, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, okay, so that will be coming out, be on council's agenda next Tuesday, and then the other request is to create a second, a sort of a youth alternate position. Just knowing that oftentimes you're getting juniors who then leave to college, and so having that, they requested a second youth member as well. So that will be on next Tuesday's council agenda and on the consent calendar, no discussion. And assuming they approve that, we'll be advertising for that. So if you do know of anyone in the community who might be interested in that, definitely send them to the planning department and we will get them the information.
Sure.
Thank you. Carrie, just one follow-up question on that. Do you know who will be facilitating on a staff end the climate action committee meetings when Alan leaves the city?
That's a good question. I will be at tomorrow's meeting. There are a couple of items that I want to address, and then I am working closely with Diana Rich and Sarah Gurney about that. And for the next couple, I'll probably be in attendance. The city, can talk about in the director's report, but we will have some on-call staffing assisting the city as well, and meeting that team, and we're having our kickoff meeting tomorrow for that. And so how that might fit into the climate action committee is yet to be determined at this point, though.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, moving on to item 8A, election of chair and vice chair. And normally what traditionally we've done is we start with the nomination election of the chair, and then the chair takes over and then handles the vice chair nominations as well. So at this point, I will open that up and ask for any nominations for chair.
I would like to nominate Paul Fritz for chair.
Okay, and Paul, do you accept that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't need a second, do we, for that? Oh, we're going to vote, right? So
I do believe we have a second. We asked for a second.
okay, I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay. And yes, we do them in order. Once someone has been nominated, we do a vote before taking additional nominations. So with that second, I will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Otten, sorry.
It's okay. Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Ottinger was an aye. Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindenbush?
Aye.
Vice Chair Fritz?
Aye.
And Chair Fernandez?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes. Paul Fritz will be the new chair. We can either hand the gavel over now, or you can defer to the current chair if you'd like.
I'll go ahead and hand over now, but before I do that, I just want to thank the commissioners, those that had opportunity to step up and take on additional duties. I know it's not the ability of all the commissioners, with work and family issues, so I respect that. But those that could, thank you for stepping up. I try to kind of make it more of an engaging commission, considering everything going on, just kind of pitch in and help out with that. So I appreciate that. And appreciate Planning Director Carey for taking a leap of faith and collaborating with me on more of a involvement with the agenda. And I appreciate working with you and your professionalism and your balance of being unbiased with your duties, responsibilities, zoning, but yet with an eye towards benefit of the community. So I appreciate that as well, and look forward to continue to work with the rest of the commissioners. So thank you. And with that, Chair Fritz, it's yours. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I will go on to item 8. We're still on item 8A. And open for nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to make a nomination.
Sure.
I'd like to, and I hope Kathy's ready this time to move up in the leadership within the Planning Commission. So I'd like to nominate her for vice chair.
Thank you, Linda. I can do it this time.
Good. I'll second that.
Okay, I will do a roll call vote. Commissioner, sorry.
Oh, do we?
You're not chair anymore, Everett.
No. The commissioner chair, do we have any other nominations?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, do we take other nominations or do we just vote on, I guess I'm not sure.
Do you do one at a time? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, usually we do one and then vote on it. And if that
Apologize.
isn't successful, then a follow-up nomination. So,
okay, never mind.
So I'll go ahead and do the roll call. Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindenbush?
Aye.
Commissioner Ottinger? Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Fernandez?
Aye.
And Chair Fritz?
Aye.
All right, so Kathy, congratulations. And we do not have a gavel, but I will change your titles right now.
So we'll move on to item 9, the planning director's report, please.
Thank you. And actually, I believe one of the other items to discuss, let me get my agenda pulled back up.
Oh, I see that. I skipped one.
Yeah, it was discussion of the meeting time. And I can introduce this item, or Paul, if you'd like to go ahead.
I have no idea what this item is about.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
Sure, thank you. So this is actually an item to discuss if a change in meeting time to be earlier in the evening. This actually is something that the commission would be interested in. This is actually something that then Vice Chair Fritz brought up when we were having discussions regarding the Planning Commission composition in terms of potential suggestions and ideas of how we might increase public participation with the Planning Commission meetings. And so I did want to, circle back around with the commission in terms of that that idea. And Paul, I don't know if you wanted to add anything in terms of any thoughts you had on it. I've also discussed this with this agenda item with former Chair Fernandez as well a little bit too.
It was just a thought. I don't know if it would help or not. I know we did try it briefly. I can't remember. Does anyone else remember? Do you remember, Everett? We did we tried a couple of 6 o'clock meeting starts. And
I can't remember if that was for special meetings or if it was just a regular commission meeting or.
Yeah,
I think last year we had one special meeting regarding Ives Park improvements to accommodate Dante's schedule, as well as a public hearing that was on the regular agenda.
I felt like there was some other time, I don't know, it may have been before your time, Carrie, that we tried to do an earlier meeting start and it didn't really seem to pan out. I can't remember why, but I personally wouldn't mind getting out of meetings earlier. So theoretically, if we start them earlier, we would finish earlier, but I don't know if it is a better time for the public. I mean, I know when meetings start going past 9 o'clock, usually people start drifting away pretty quickly. So I don't know if it's something we could try for sure and see if it helps, but I don't know if that was just kind of my thoughts about it, but I don't know. Happy to hear other people's opinions on it.
So I'm not sure if this is appropriate to bring before we have a public, public comment, because, I'd like to share experience when we went to 6 p.m. for the city council, but this isn't a question, so it's almost more part of deliberations, I guess. So whenever you guys are ready, let me know.
And we actually, so Chair Fritz, we should take public comment or see if there is any. We do have one member of the public here still.
Okay. Any member of the public like to speak on this item on the Planning Commission start time?
And if you'd like if you could just unmute yourself and go ahead, that'd be great. Michael, I don't know if you can see the screen, but you're the only member of the public who's not on the commission, if you wanted to comment.
Earlier is better.
Okay.
Thank you for your comment. We have one member of the public voting for earlier is better, so.
It's 100% of the public vote.
100% of the public thinks earlier is better. I like that. All right, is there any further discussion? Anyone else have an opinion about an earlier start time? Concerns about an earlier start time, or they like an earlier start time?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what Linda had to say at this point.
Go ahead, Linda. What's your thoughts?
Well, there was one council member who would fall asleep very early and or start getting tired. So there was, and then also maybe encouraging more folks to show up. And, you know, especially for folks that need to get home with their kids or seniors and it's getting dark and blah, blah, blah. So, but the experience over time has been, it seems like the meetings still go on a long time. And so now they're, you know, but yeah, everyone's used to it. But in terms of, did it make it better for the public? Did they attend more? I don't think so. I checked in with a council member to see how that, you know, her recollection also from all these years ago. So I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, but in terms of just the experience of the council, now their agenda is different than ours, and so it can go on, you know, until someone says, you know, let's stick on topic. So, but that's just my comments on it, and I'm at this point, I'm fine with it being either time. So I'm done.
Okay. If we, so right now there's something in our meeting protocols, I guess, that if our meeting starting at 7 goes to 11, in order to continue, we have to kind of have the, everybody has to agree to continue. So if we start meetings at 6, would we be able to do that for a 10 o'clock time instead of the 11?
I think it would be up to the commission. I do know that City Council, because it's affected one of my reports recently, take a vote at 10:30. So, you know, you could certainly do that as well. But I believe it would be up to the commission in terms of the, you know, and any modifications to that.
And if we did decide to try this out, when would you think it would be prudent to have it be effective?
I think that could also be up to the commission. It is, I would want to check with the presenters that we have lined up, because I know they're all prepped for a 7 o'clock meeting. I do anticipate all of those will still be via Zoom, however. So in terms of accommodating that, I would like to check that. So, but if they're okay with it, I could certainly see it happening sooner rather than later.
I mean, I'd be for it. And as far as the start time, I don't really, I mean, start date, I don't really have any opinion as far as whether we wait till speakers are all scheduled in or not. But you know, I could go either way. Keep it at 7 or start at 6.
Kathy, you had a question or comment?
I agree that it could start at 6 or 7. It doesn't matter to me. And I don't know that it matters to the public, as Linda said, either. But I'm wondering if we knew that we had a long agenda or a big topic with lots of likely public attendance, if we could start earlier, just so that we don't run so late. I mean, we might have been in the meeting for 5 hours, but it's still not 11 o'clock. I wonder whether that could be done on occasion, as we did for that special meeting that we had.
Yes, so I would say that it is always the Planning Commission's. I'll just make two quick comments on that. One is, yes, we can always do a special meeting time. That's an earlier time if needed for a specific project or for a specific reason, just like we did. Actually, not just like we did, where it was a kind of a separate meeting that was adjourned. But yes, you can call a special meeting to start at an earlier time, even if it's at the same, even if it's, you know, the same normal meeting date that you have. And I think as I work with Chair Fritz, I think Chair Fernandez will attest to that he and I work very closely to manage the agendas and make sure we weren't overloading and overpacking or under packing agendas. So I'm certainly a proponent of agenda management to make sure that everyone gets a fair hearing if there's a number of hearings coming up, and space things out appropriately in terms of sort of the normal flow of things.
Yeah, it's been very good, by the way. Thank you.
I'll just echo that I don't really see too huge of a problem with our current start time, and would be in favor of keeping it at 7 p.m. With the exception of special meetings as previously stated.
I'd like to additional comment. I forgot that our city staff, needs to have a little bit of a dinner time. And so I think our sensitivity to that as well. And then, of course, there's a lot of members of the public that can't come till after they're done with work. But the most important for me is, if it's to have city staff be able to have that break from their workday, and is it better to, have it go pretty quick at 6 o'clock, or or how does that work for you, Carrie?
Thank you for your consideration there, Commissioner Kelly. I will say that we start our workdays at 7 a.m. So the earlier time actually works better for me, just because 7 to 11 it can get to be a little bit long at times.
I don't have a super strong opinion. If we were to start at 6, it does make it consistent with the city council, at least. I mean, maybe, I don't know if there's some advantage to that people know that Tuesday night it's either city council or planning commission at 6 o'clock. Then it's kind of just a regular thing that people kind of get in their minds. There may be some, advantage to that. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling. It sounds like no one has a super strong feeling about this. So maybe we just leave it the way it is and continue on. Or we can also do a kind of trial basis to see if it, do it for a couple months and see how it works. And if it seems like it's not really increasing participation or anything, we can just move it back to the later time. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to support that. Let's try it, and also consideration for staff. Since people are really carried away, I'd say let's come up with a plan to start. And I think it's a good idea. Council and planning commission have the same start times.
Mm-hmm. So,
So I think Chair Fritz, in terms of moving this forward, I'd like to, like I said, I'd like to check with the presenters before moving it. So it would probably be best to make sure that, the next meeting starts at 7 and we can make a formal announcement at that time.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Great.
Thanks. Okay, now item 9, planning director's report.
Thank you, Chair Fritz. So first off, I would like to thank Chair Fernandez for his work this last year as chair. It's been a real pleasure working with him and coordinating on items, agendas, thinking about and identifying troubleshooting potential coordination issues on projects. He's been great to work with and an excellent chair. So I wanted to thank Everett for your service on that. I really appreciate that. And getting us up and running with the director chair meetings has been
thank you.
Great with
in
you.
case ever comes up for trivia, my entire term was virtual.
That's true. That's interesting. I guess council doesn't get that since they start their terms in December. Although they could actually for the current year. Okay. All right. So other items of interest in the planning department. We have a few items on next Tuesday's agenda for council that might be of interest. As I mentioned, the consent calendar item for the climate actions subcommittee or committee. There will also be a housing law presentation. So I didn't add that onto our flyer because this is the Planning Commission's flyer, not our. We do have a flyer out for the Planning Commission presentations, which has been in Sonoma West Times and Townsend and a couple other places, as well as the city's newsletter. And it is on our website as a one-page PDF if you would like to email to anyone. I can also email to the commission if you'd like to share with any interested parties. But there will be a housing law presentation. It will actually be pretty similar to what was given to this commission in the joint Planning Commission DRB presentation exactly a year ago as our very first virtual meeting, if you recall, during COVID. And it seemed like a webinar format was a good first try for that. So, we'll also have an annual level of service report on the next Tuesday meeting, and then that will be coming to the commission on April 27th. And then also a recommendation to move forward with the Ned Kahn sculpture just northwest of the Highway 12 bridge, where, near where the AmeriCorps Trail will be going. So that was acted on, recommended unanimously by the Public Art Committee at their last meeting in the location proposed by the artist. It's actually set back about 150 feet from the right of way. It's still tall enough you can see it from the entry to town, but actually is much quieter as the roadway noise is diminished when you get there on the site. I've done a site visit to the location. And Mr. Khan is proposing to add some benches and sort of make it a little bit of a destination and a reason to use the trail, which seems really complementary to the new trail going in. And then next Wednesday, the design review board will be reviewing the Huntley Square application. Many of you might remember that from their preliminary review that they had. They had their first preliminary review quite a while ago. It was before my tenure at the city. But more recently, they had a development agreement request that came to the Planning Commission. And so this is their formal application for a subdivision for the 10-unit mini townhome project that they're working on. And so the way they've designed it, it would require planned community zoning that they're proposing. And so as part of the formal process for that, it does require the DRB take a look at it first in terms of the site arrangement and the zoning standards, and provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission. So that will be coming to you in the coming months as that project with their DRB recommendation. And then lastly, we do have budget hearings coming up. The public hearings at full city council start on June 1st. And I have had, the budget subcommittee has been meeting both on the planning department budget, which there's not a whole lot of change to that proposed, but also to the capital improvement projects and specific to the park projects. I did forward the Planning Commission's recommendation on the various projects to them for that. I believe that, and yeah, just I believe you all saw the notice that Alan has accepted a job and will be leaving the city. His last day is on Monday. So I know some of you have already wished him well, and I certainly wish him well as well. I want to thank him for his service. We will have a couple of contract staff assisting both on sort of part-time basis. From De Novo Planning Group, who helped us with their zoning ordinance and plan update. They're on our on-call consulting list and will be helping us out in the meantime. And I will send we'll have one of the individuals by the name of Jeff will be working as an on-call, the counter assistants. He's an assistant planner, and then Callie, who's a senior planner, will be working on the more project level like Huntley Square.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions about the planning director's report?
I have a general question. If I could give a little feedback about what happened at City Council last week. Our city manager reported that the city managers for the county are going to start getting together to talk about how to reopen the cities, city hall, meetings, and such. And I'm a little, I don't know how to forward this. Maybe I'll write the city manager myself, but you know, I'm just hoping that we move slow. And if you saw the PD article today, 39 fully vaccinated residents of Sonoma County have now come down with COVID-19. So there's just too many unknowns, and I know for myself, I have accommodations at work around it, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to have either a hybrid, which seems like a pain in the butt, I know, but I just don't know if we want to, how we can have input into this ourselves, since any decision that's made about how we meet will affect us as commissioners and the public as well. So
thank you, Commissioner Kelly, and yes, thank you. So, and we have at a department head level just begun discussions about that. There are some thoughts about, I mean, I know certainly there's interest between myself and other planning directors, seeing how much more community participation we've had with the Zoom meetings than we sometimes had. I mean, not that we didn't ever have participation in person, but, you know, I myself am a strong proponent of community participation, and sort of recognize that people with kids, I've seen quite a few of them on Zoom where you can see the kid in the background, where they might not come out to a meeting, or seniors who don't want to or can't drive at night and need those types of accommodations. So I think that's definitely something the city would be looking into. And I would imagine that at that point, then there would be opportunities for, you know, commissioners as well as the public to do that remotely. But yes, certainly all precautions, and Commissioner Kelly will certainly bring forward your comments and concerns. And I do want to recognize actually that Commissioner Kelly was the first one to ask the question in Sebastopol in a public meeting, what are you guys doing about COVID? And I remember that about January meeting or so when Commissioner Kelly asked that. So I certainly respect your position on this and your advice to take things slowly. I think certainly the city's primary interest is to make sure everyone is safe, both in the public as well as our staff. So thank you, Linda, for that comment.
Well, I know it's been a hell of a year, and you know, you all know where I work, and the unit that I am in, and you know, we are one of the COVID ICUs in the county, the biggest one, and it leveled off, and it was starting to get better, but it's starting to ramp up again. So I'm just, you know, very, very concerned, and so just a little. Just sharing with you all. I mean, we're doing a good job, but it's the virus and all its variants, you know, so everyone still needs to do all of our precautions. I know I'm speaking to the choir here, but you know, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Linda. I mean, yeah, there have been some real, you know, advantages to this format. I mean, it's a little bit strange to all be remote, but you know, it has some pluses, and I would think it'd be nice to be able to carry it through just in some capacity in the future, especially for public comment and public participation. I don't know how you do that if we're in a room and trying to have public participation remotely or something, but it seems there's some real advantages to that.
Mm-hmm. And kind of related to that, if the record report is done, just an announcement in conjunction with commission. I'm going to be presenting a workshop, a free workshop for tips and strategies for working from home on May 12th at noon. So kind of trying to help people continue doing that and make it as successful as possible.
Anyone else have any questions for on the planning director's report? I just have a question about, I'm just wondering, so with Alan leaving, I'm assuming the city's gonna replace him and advertise at some point for a new planner. What is the status of the building official? Are we still actively searching for a building official, or are we gonna just contract that out for now, or just wondering what's happening with that position?
Thank you, Chair Fritz. So I believe the associate planner position was posted yesterday. So yes, absolutely, we'll be replacing him. And if you know of any, since many of you work in the field, if you know of any good planners, please encourage them to apply. In terms of the building official, so there right now the status quo of having Philip Seabrook as the building official, Daryl Phillips as the building official, and Steve Brown, who works for them, as the inspector. I think that's going to continue for the foreseeable. And if you have any comments to that, and it gets into personnel, but if you wanted to contact me offline, Paul, with any comments or thoughts you have on that, I'd appreciate that. Yeah,
I'm just kind of curious. I know we've been without, I miss Glenn, I guess I'll say. I think I can say that publicly. I miss Glenn.
Yeah, and I will say Daryl is working, he's attending the FEMA meetings with me for potential flood map updates. And he is the city's floodplain administrator. And he's on our local hazard mitigation plan advisory, or the HMC, the working group, working with the consultant on that as well. So he's involved with more than just the building permitting side of things.
Great. Anything else? Anyone have anything else to bring up? Well, thank you. Thanks, Everett, for your shepherding us through this virtual year. Well done. That's a strange thing, and trying to manage this, virtually is kind of a weird thing. So
yeah,
hopefully I can fill your footsteps. And I guess with that, I will adjourn the meeting until April 27th. Thanks, everyone.